Roll Tide, everybody. What do you say? It's Mick Gillispie and Clint Lamb. CoverCrimson.com. This is going to be our first Coach DeBoer watch and reaction after the game on Saturday. Clint, I just feel like there's a lot to get into. I mean, I know he's going to be talking Wisconsin. You know, there's going to be questions about what happened last game. But, for Alabama, I mean, a learning experience in that 42-16 win.
Yeah, I mean, now that he's gotten a chance to go back and watch the tape, I've been going through it as well and discovering some new things I'm sure we'll be talking about on the show later. But yeah, I'll be very curious to see what he saw and what he felt like were some of the issues. How do you get them resolved? But then also there was some good, and I'd like to see him discuss some of that too. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, Roll Tide to you, little Joe C. Thank you for hanging out. EG is there from Cover Crimson, so we got somebody on the ground as well. If you asked him a question, if you had a question to ask about last week's game, what would it be?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I would probably need a minute to really come up with something good, but I was curious how he felt like the offensive line performed. Just because once you get to go back and look at the tape, I mean, it's a new offensive line. You got a guard playing left tackle. You got a redshirt freshman that had pretty much zero experience before last week. You got, some interior players that are new. Parker Brailsford's new, even though he's played a lot of football. Obviously, Vandemark's new, sliding in at left guard. So just, I don't think it was very fair how criticized they were considering all those issues. The fact that Pritchett wasn't 100%, you didn't see him until the end of the game. And the fact that USF just threw so many different looks, so many different blitz packages. I would just love to know kind of where he thought the offensive line stood relative to where the perception is for the offensive line, especially on the right side. I would love to get an honest answer out of him, but going back and looking at it, I don't think it was a good performance at all. But I always try to figure out or understand the why and see if it's going to be a long-term thing. And maybe I end up being very wrong on this, but I just don't think it's going to be a long-term issue.
Right. Well, I mean, they had some issues last year. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, great game against Georgia, subpar game against Michigan. It's finding consistency at that position. Now, you guys know that Caden Proctor's been out. When's he going to be back? Wilkin Formby's taking a beating, but it's a learning experience for him. I mean, it really is. He's going to be a lot better have gone through this experience, guys. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you get your butt kicked in football sometimes, and then you go back to the drawing board and you watch the videotape and you work on your quickness, you work on your technique. You got to do those things. I mean, that's kind of part of what the position is. But for Alabama, moving forward, I mean, this seems like this Wisconsin game is set up to be one that'll be super physical, and that the offensive line is going to have to play their best football for Alabama to win on the road.
I mean, they're certainly going to have to play better. I don't think Wisconsin is going to do a lot of what USF did. They're going to do some of it. I think anybody that sees Alabama struggling in certain ways, they're going to try to, duplicate it as much as they can and exploit it as much as they can. But it's also got to kind of be a part of your identity a little bit. And, I think Alabama's going to get better with the communication with the, once you get 5 guys settled in. That's not going to be this week, obviously. Caden Proctor could be back. Elijah Pritchett could be back to, a lot closer to being 100%, but we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot left that needs to be determined. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. And I think that when you look at this Alabama team, like I said before, I think they're going to be better off for having gone through a game like that. And you can't duplicate in practice what's going on in a game. And comments, great to see you, King. Last game was a learning experience. I say that. Joseph, Roll Tide to you too, as we're waiting on Kalen DeBoer to hit the podium, and then we'll pop it up and watch it together. Nick Sheridan's talking right now. And again, Cover Crimson, sign up for $1, be a part of it. You get this shirt when you get the annual. Mike Johnson and the All-American Report. He's going to break down the offensive line in depth tomorrow's show. It's only for subscribers. but he's going to look at Wilkin Formby. He's played with a ton of guys. He's coached offensive line. He played at Alabama, 2-time All-American, played in the NFL for the Falcons. He knows it. And that's what I asked him. I said, hey, let's really get into this, what you saw technique-wise. And he's going to be very fair. I mean, he's a guy that's always said that he's an offensive lineman first, which is pretty funny. But that's for subscribers. So you can sign up right now for $1 or just do the annual. You get this shirt. And honestly, at the end of the day, we're going to give you a lot of great content on there exclusive for Cover Crimson subscribers. And of course, you, Clint, you're going back through every single play.
Yeah, it's been interesting. You discover a lot. You see a lot. You see things live. Like one of the things that I thought I saw live was that the offense was a lot more vanilla than it was last week, as far as like the pre-snap motions. And I do feel like they got into some lulls, over the course of the game, and especially in the second half, where maybe they weren't doing as much of that. And I don't know if it was, what the purpose behind that was. But going back and watching through, I discovered, that they actually were doing a lot of that stuff. And I still say the actual play calling was relatively vanilla. But all the pre-snap eye candy, trying to give Jalen Milroe any sort of leg up as far as, sending guys in motion, finding out if they're in man or zone, any kind of information that you could gather from the defense pre-snap, they were doing, quite a bit of that in the first half. So, you learn a lot. I learned a lot about the defense, and we'll be talking about that later on the show. We'll be talking about that in my snap count observations. Super in depth, and then we'll be doing the mailbag later today, and we'll be discussing it a lot more there as well. So just pretty much everything's going to get covered pretty extensively, whether it be today or in the next couple of days, and people definitely need to be tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with us here on Cover Crimson. So what a you talk about the game. What an awesome fourth quarter. I mean, I know that it was bad. It wasn't comfortable, but the 28-point barrage at the end of the game with the knockout punch, it was like watching a boxing match where the guy that was fighting the champ was putting up a good fight. But when it came down to it, you saw the explosiveness that this Alabama team has. And it was some young guys that were a part of this. Ryan Williams scored the most pivotal touchdown to me in the game. Jalen Mbakwe, I love Jalen Mbakwe. This. I talk about this all the time. He came in for Cole Adams to return punts, did a great job of helping set up Alabama with a punt return. This team has young players that are contributing right now. And the way that they finished that football game is it shows you that you play 60 minutes. You got to play 60. You don't play 60 and you got blown out. I don't care what the other coach said. You lost 42-16. That's a blowout.
Yeah, and I think that that's a big question that Alex Golish had following the game, is he doesn't know what happened over those last 10 minutes, 9-10 minutes of the game. It just seemed like everything shifted on a dime. And now, granted, I think what you saw, and people will say, okay, it's because Elijah Pritchett came into the game, that changed everything. You had some runs off of him. I certainly think that played a part. I don't want to discredit that completely, but I think that wasn't like the turning point for everything. I think Alabama, the penalties started decreasing. You weren't seeing as many of those. They were doing a better job of tackling, especially the quarterback. But then the offense and the defense started playing more complementary football, where Alabama started to score points. Obviously they went on a couple of touchdown runs like immediately. And then that put USF in kind of a reactionary mode where they're getting out of their comfort zone. You don't have to worry as much about the quarterback run, because it's like, hey, if you want to take off with your quarterback every time and get 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, yards a pop, you're going to be grinding clock this entire time you're doing it, and you're down too much to be doing that stuff. So they had to become more of a drop back passing offense where, Alabama could tee off on it a little bit more. So, all these things play a role, but I that's one part of the offensive tape that I haven't gotten to yet, is the, really late in the game. And I'm very excited to check it out, because I kind of want to see all the different things that kind of transpired to lead to that, because you don't see 28 points getting scored in, like a 10-minute span. That just doesn't happen very often. So what led to it, I'll be curious to find out.
Yeah, very interesting. Show's brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use the promo code next round to double your initial deposit. That's right. MyBookie will double your initial deposit when you use the code next round. Kick off the football season with mybookie.ag and double your initial deposit by using the code next round. Still waiting on Coach DeBoer. When he hits the podium, we'll swing over and Clint and I will watch it with you and then kind of give you our thoughts on. Don't forget too, we still got our show at 1:00 today, so we're done. It's a double dip Monday, but we these press conferences and they're a lot bigger now than they used to be. It used to be Saban would come out, give you 8 minutes, grumble about a couple things, and then and here's a great question. I want to get into this too. Thank you, Jersey Dolphins. And then now, you get all the coordinators and everything else. Somehow the show got turned off on Saturday. I was hunkered down for another hour and a half. I figured we would do like 3 hours. And I don't know what happened. I'll just be honest with you. I don't know how it got turned off. Clint and I were sitting there talking to ourselves.
We discussed it for probably a good, probably 10, 15 minutes after that, because we were trying to figure out. Yeah, figure out what happened. And then we're like, okay, do we go live again? It's really hard to kind of, a lot of people move on. YouTube really doesn't like when you like end a live and then immediately start another one. So it's like, okay, I mean, it was already, like 11:30 by that point. So we were trying to figure out, okay, how do we handle this? And now eventually shifted to, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Because, you didn't hit anything. I didn't hit anything. So we still don't know exactly what happened. But our goal is for that to never happen again, because we still had a lot to say, man.
Yeah, right. It's disappointing. I mean, I'll tell you that right now, and that they don't have the technology that once that stream ends, that you can jump back in there again. You're out and you can't get back. And it was disappointing. I mean, so we apologize, but thanks for hanging with us. Sometimes you can't wrestle with technology. I mean, it's just the way it is, right?
Well, and I'll say, this weekend, it's an away game. I'm not going to be traveling to Madison. When the game is over, you're probably going to be hopping on first. Probably we'll take a couple of calls, but I plan on hopping on really quickly. I'll be in studio pretty much, and or in my studio, and we'll immediately get a lot of reaction, and we'll be on for the long haul. I'm hoping there's a lot to talk about with that game, but that's one where it's like, it's going to be a test for Alabama. It's going to be, I'm not going to say it's going to be more meaningful in a lot of ways. And so I'll be excited to kind of break that down with you and, take a bunch of calls, answer a bunch of questions. So we'll be in it for the long haul. That was not a common situation. I had fun in the time we did have, though.
I'm interested to see where Alabama is. Is Alabama the team that played in the last, half of the fourth quarter, or is Alabama the team that couldn't snap the ball, that couldn't block? The snapping was good. That couldn't block, that was turning the football over. That Milroe looked at times like he was a little bit confused. Which Alabama is it? That's the question that I have, and that's what I can't wait to find out when they take on Wisconsin. So anyway, look, Coach DeBoer is about to come up and hit the podium. I'm going to.
It might be. Is it Womack first?
Womack, I don't think so. I mean, we just saw Sheridan. So who went first?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what time they started. Womack could have gone first.
Yeah, so we'll find out. I'm hoping that it's Coach DeBoer right here. But
I would be curious to hear Womack's thoughts too, though. To be honest with you,
we'll swing, no matter who it is, we'll put it on. How about that?
Yeah. I mean,
Danco, I'm a Raven too, man. And there's a lot of Alabama Ravens, including King Henry. But Roll Tide, man, thanks for being here with us. Alabama has got to do a better job and not beat themselves, man. And, it's always good to see you on here. Been a long time hanger outer of ours. Same thing with Jersey Dolphins, Brian and Bob, all you guys, man. Roll Tide. That was what a tough game. But I'm curious, Clint. I just want to know what Alabama's going to show up, because if they go and get beat by Wisconsin, it really will feel like it's a new era, and not for a good reason. If they go and take care of business, then I think that we're all right. I think it's going to be one of those situations where we're just kind of going, okay, you know what? A new coach, same result.
Yeah, I thought I need to go double check this, but my dad texted yesterday and said I'll check it in a minute. But he said the initial line came out at 9 or like 9.5 or something like that, and it immediately jumped to 15. I mean, immediately. And
Really?
yeah, and he said that he's never seen that before. So I haven't double checked that. I'll need to go check and make sure. But if that's the case, I mean, that means that obviously a lot of the early money was immediately thrown on Alabama. Maybe, it's like I said, I do feel like things were a little bit vanilla. Um, and I think that they did more than I initially thought they did, but I still feel like it was vanilla. I still feel like that the way USF attacked Alabama, it wasn't MTSU from last year, but there were some similarities, just a ton of different looks. They were bringing pressure from everywhere, lining up guys in the line of scrimmage. You had no idea which ones were coming. And it was, I just think Alabama's makeshift offensive line had some trouble with it. So if they can get some guys back, if they can, yeah, I think that was a learning experience. I think you need some of that to understand how bad things can go when, you're not properly prepared or you haven't seen it before. As they get more comfortable and gel a little bit more, I would expect a lot of that to get cleaned up. But it's going to take a little bit of Milrow helping them out too. You got to be able to see some things, take some advantage of some situations when they're bringing pressure. And pre-snap and post-snap, I think you could use a little bit more of that. But that's going to continue to come with time, and I think it should get better.
Buddy?
All right, here he is. Up, it is Womack. Let's listen to Womack here. How about that?
Okay. First off, to start off, just wanted to take a minute and talk about Q Robinson. His father passed away this past week, and such a difficult thing to go through, the loss of a family member. I can't think of a young man that has handled that better personally and with his teammates. He's a great son and was very supportive for his family and spent time with them this week. And also did a tremendous job of doing the extra things that it takes to prepare for a game. Just our condolences go out to him and his family, but just so proud of who he is as a young man, the leader he is for our team, our teammates, his teammates really surrounded him well this week, and then he went out and played very well for the second week in a row. So certainly want to recognize him. Looking back on last week, our recap of South Florida, one of the things that I told the guys, I said, you're learning lessons and learning how to get better through success and wins. Not everybody gets to say that in college football right now, and so that's important. I thought from a defensive standpoint, I thought we showed up in some critical moments in the game, which was encouraging to see. Some younger players stepped up in those moments as well. And then I thought the leadership of our defense showed out on the sideline and then out on the field as well. We had 8 3-and-outs in the game at 13, what we call game changers, which I've gone kind of over those things with you guys as well. From a situational down standpoint, I thought we were dominant in the game. We were, I think, 17 of 20 overall on third and fourth downs. We were 3 of 4 in the red zone, holding them to field goals. Really disappointed in the one touchdown that we gave up. Thought we should have been better there and given ourselves a chance to get another stop on third down. And so we have to continue to improve. It's not okay to give up touchdowns in the red zone, even though we were able to win 3 out of the 4. No touchdowns again to begin and end each half. That's critical for starting fast as a defense and finishing well. I think in the fourth quarter right now, over 2 games, we're 35-3, which shows that our players are learning to finish. Um, and then zero explosive passes given up, and that's really challenging for an offense like that goes fast. They take shots downfield, and do a number of things to force you to get your cleats out of the ground and then capitalize on it in the passing game. Probably the most disappointing thing was we had a number of explosive runs that were given up. We had a couple misfits. We had 2 turnovers. We had 2 fumbles. We had 2 interceptions. We had 2 fumbles. We had 2 fumbles. We had 2 interceptions. We had 2 fumbles. We had 2 interceptions. We had 2 fumbles. We had 2 fumbles. We had 2 interceptions. 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 3 times we did not execute our pressure properly, so we had essentially missed patterns in the pressures that we bring, and we've got to be able to capitalize off of those things. And then 2 missed tackles. So from a standpoint of, I thought we let the quarterback, you know, when we call some of these pressures, the intent is to get the quarterback on the ground and make him uncomfortable. And I thought because we did not execute in that moment, we didn't take advantage of that, and thus they took advantage of it in the run game. So those are things that we've got to get cleaned up. Extremely disappointed in the lack of takeaways that we were not able to create. Their team did. They created 3 of them. We were -3 in the turnover margin, which is absolutely unacceptable by our defense. It has to be something that we focus on day in and day out. It's what we preach. It's who we are. It's what we believe in, and it did not show up in this game. And so something that we've got to continue to push and pressure um, uh, to focus on getting that done on game day. So with that, moving on to next week, review of Wisconsin. First road game for us. I think it'll be a great test going up there into a really tremendous environment. They've got a great atmosphere there, beautiful campus, beautiful university. They've got their traditions in the third quarter jump around. I think our guys got to lean into those things. I think they got to enjoy it and appreciate it and recognize some of the greatness of college football, and then go play the game at a really high level. I've always been impressed with Luke Fickell. Have had connections with him over the years. Years ago, when he was at Ohio State, he came down and visited us at Ole Miss, and kind of learned some of the things that we were doing defensively under my dad. Have kind of kept in touch with him over the years, and very impressed with his teams. I think his teams embody, who he is as an individual. Very tough, very demanding of his players, and you can see that there's a toughness and a physicality in the way that they are playing, and I think they're improving in that in year 2 from what we've seen so far. We're going to be facing a well-established offense. Phil Longo has had success at a number of stops, and has had tremendous quarterbacks that he has developed. Obviously, having another one in Tyler Van Dyke, who is developing in their system. You see him starting to lean in even from week 1 to week 2 and what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. Think he has had, great answers over the years. So very impressed by Phil and what he's done over the years. And I think, year 2, you're starting to see some of the new wrinkles that they want to do offensively. I think they're effectively running the ball better than what they did a year ago. You can tell that they're schematically focused on that, and their players from a fundamental standpoint have improved in terms of the run game. So we'll have a good challenge for us. I think they've got some impressive skill, some guys that can win one-on-one matchups, and we'll have to do a great job of mixing zone and man coverage in order to minimize their effectiveness in the passing game. So with that, I'll take questions.
Yeah, you mentioned no explosive passing plays given up, but there were a few times where they just weren't able to connect, and some busting coverage that way, or just guys who got past their guys. What are some of the teaching points there?
Yeah.
To make sure that doesn't happen?
So there were 2 times where I thought that guys were down the field. One was they were going fast 3 plays in a row. You've seen it at Oklahoma State was probably the team that was most famous for it. Back before they would, when a guy would substitute, now we give the defense a chance to sub. Well, back in the day, we didn't used to do that. So teams would just run, the next wide receiver out and the next wide receiver out. And that's what they tried to do. And we had a substitution issue there where we didn't feel like we had the time to be able to get somebody back out there. And so we put a young corner in a tough spot where he was kind of in limbo. He wasn't in press coverage. He wasn't in off coverage. And he just got ran by because his eyes were in a bad spot. So the other one was just a technique error where guy released inside. We were denying the outside release. We forced him to release inside, which is probably the only reason they didn't connect on the ball. We went back and looked at this a long time ago. When you look at inside release fade balls, the ones that you force a receiver to release inside versus if he gets the outside release on you, the completion percentage is far less on an inside release. So that was probably the only thing that saved us. However, we put our eyes in the backfield when we did get beat back inside instead of staying on top shoulder. So those are things that young players have to learn. They have to get corrected moving forward. And so that's really going to be the key is, making sure that those young guys learn from those mistakes.
What's going to be the challenge of not having Justin Jefferson for the first half, and kind of what was your perspective on the play that he got ejected on?
Yeah, we obviously it's always disappointing, right, when you have a dynamic player that is not available for one half of the game. We looked at the play. I looked at it from about every angle that I could. I think we just got to tell the young man, keep playing. So it is what it is. We'll deal with it, and get ourselves ready for him in the second half. So.
Coach, after having a chance to watch some film on Wisconsin along with USF, what do you foresee yourself spending the most time on with the defense this week?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of that question?
After watching film of Wisconsin and USF.
Yeah. Wisconsin or USF? Oh, both. Gotcha. Okay. All right. I think from the USF game, some of the things that we talked about just in terms of the run fits in particular, we got to get some of those things cleaned up. Really, it was just the explosive plays. They had a number of runs that I thought we played really well, but we've got to do that consistently when teams are going fast. That's really structurally and schematically, that's what USF is built to do. They're meant to try to get you on your heels so that you will misfit something or miss tackle. And I thought they did that a couple of times against us. So we've got to continue to learn from that. Looking ahead to Wisconsin, I think, this is a team that is taking great ownership of the physicality that they play with, their ability to run the football, the toughness that they have and carry. They're big people. I'll never forget years ago, I was at the University of Arkansas, and we had a great team, went to an SEC championship, and ended up playing Wisconsin in a bowl game. We were kind of the biggest team in the SEC and the biggest team, week in and week out that we faced. And you look across the sideline, and you thought, oh, they look like us. They're big people, they're massive people. So, and so that's going to be a great challenge for us to be able to match that toughness and that physicality on their home turf. So excited for the challenge.
Hey, Coach, I'm taking you back to week one for a second. We talked to Keon Sabb after the game, and he mentioned you used the phrase "e-Bombay" with your defense. I'm just curious, when did you start using that, and kind of what does it kind of represent for your group there?
Well, I am the Womack boys. We are Marvel fans, so we love the Marvel movies. And so in the movie Black Panther years ago when that came out, gosh, what was that? Maybe 2015, 16, something like that. That movie came out, and I'm always like, I guess I'm a nerd when it comes to some of those things. So I was like, what does E-Bombay mean? So I look it up, and it's actually I think it's an African Bantu language word that means hold fast the line. And so I thought, what a fitting chant, right, for a red zone defense, right, to hold the line. And so we talk about that. Doesn't matter how they get down in the red zone, whether there's we've turned the ball over or whether they've gone on a 16-play drive and it's first and goal from the 5-yard line. Everyone has to E-Bombay. We have to hold fast the line. We have to do our 1/11th to be able to hold the line in that situation. And I think that's something that our players have kind of leaned into over the years. And, we have been successful at a number of different places in the red zone. And I think we're taking the steps in the right direction here as well.
Coach, obviously he's incredibly athletic, but Jihad Campbell, just his mentality of I'm going to make every play that I can.
Yeah.
What makes him special as in that linebacker spot to make those plays?
Well, Jihad is a very gifted athlete, but he plays the game the way it's supposed to be played from a linebacker position. He is relentless in his pursuit of the ball. He plays with an extremely high motor. He's got great juice and energy, and we always talk about effort and finish as 4 to 6 seconds from point A to point B with violent intentions when we get there, and he certainly embodies that. So very proud of the effort that he has played with. I think that's a direct tribute to him leading us in tackles through 2 games as much as anything.
What do you think Tim Keenan did well on Saturday?
Man, so impressed with Tim Keenan. I think fundamentally he is playing with great hand placement, great block recognition, physical up front. He is doing such a better job of disengaging and getting off of blocks from where he was in the spring and where he was a year ago. That was something we really challenged him to be able to create production for himself by finishing plays right. And I think he has done a tremendous job in that regard. So very proud of the work that he's put in and glad to see that he's being rewarded for that work that he puts in practice every day.
Couple of the stops that y'all got defensively on Saturday came off the turnovers, right? The second half kickoff, you get the missed field goal, you get the fumble on the goal line, you get a 3-and-out right there. Is there more value defensively in getting a stop off a turnover, and is that an identity builder?
Yeah, I think defenses, you can look at it two different ways. You can look at it as, hey, there's such adversity and all the momentum is on their sideline, and versus this is an opportunity for us to regain momentum for our football team, right? And so when you're coming on the field off of a turnover, what we call a sudden change situation, our players have to understand this is an opportunity as a defense to create momentum back for ourselves. The momentum is most certainly going to be on their sideline in that moment. You get offensive coordinators that are going to be a little more aggressive in that moment. They may open up the playbook in that situation. And so it's really critical, right, that you have great communication. You play with an effort that matches the kind of the motivation that they have and the momentum that they have on that side of the ball. And I thought our players did a really tremendous job in those situations, in those moments of getting stops for the most part. We weren't consistent enough in it, but certainly a steps in the right direction.
Curious what you saw in Coach Hitchler that made you want to add him to the staff and coach the DBs here.
Yeah. So Hitch and I had worked together before. Probably the best game day mind adjustment wise that I've been around. He sees things up in the box. Does a great job of being kind of my eyes and ears up there from a communication standpoint on game day. I've been around some really special defensive coaches over the years, and he's probably up there at the top of the list in terms of his ability to create value for as a defensive staff on game day. And so he is somebody I certainly lean on and rely on up there. My dad told me that years ago. If you're going to be up in the box, you better have somebody great on the field. If you're going to be on the field, you better have somebody great up in the box. And I think Hitch does a really tremendous job from that standpoint. You know, one of the ways that I think he creates value for his players is the way he coaches those guys to understand offensive recognition, how to recognize what is going to happen, play with anticipation. You know, we've talked about that before. Defense is inherently reactionary. We're trying to get our guys to play with anticipation. I think he does that as good as anybody. So very happy for him to be here with us, and excited to kind of be back in the foxhole with him again. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, there we go. We got Kane Womack. We had Kane Womack. Your thoughts? I thought there were some really good questions. He was asked about the two guys that were wide open in the secondary. He explained it. He's like, hey, one of them was we put a freshman in a bad spot. We didn't get a chance to sub fast enough. And then the other one he said was just bad technique. I really thought that the questioning from the reporters was good here.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, I feel like we have got so much that we can go dive into. And he's 100% right. It was Xavier Brown, and there was actually two of them where Bama fans would probably view the guys open. But going back and watching the tape, I noticed that one of them was Xavier Brown. He was not quite in phase, but he was in position enough. It would have taken a perfectly thrown ball for it to have been completed. So in Kane Womack's mind, he didn't really view it as busted coverage or anything like that. When the one that he's talking about, that was also Xavier Brown. We'll get to it in just a second. Kalen DeBoer's coming up.
Yep. Morning. Got through the weekend. I hope you guys had a good weekend, and I know you got a lot of information from the coordinators already. But probably one of the things I know I'll get asked is about injuries, and so just hit on a couple guys probably that will come up. Cole Adams got hurt upper upper extremity injury, and kind of see how he goes through the week here. We wouldn't rule him out, but I think probably be very limited early, and we'll see how it goes throughout the week there. But and then Pritchett played, in the game as you saw last, I think 6 plays or so, and came out good with that. Practiced towards the end of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, a little limited, more limited on Wednesday, and as the week went on, practiced and felt okay about him being out there. Felt good about him being out there, and he came in and did a nice job. And the big thing is that he got through healthy, and that was a key there. And then Caden Proctor, he will continue to work on his functional movement and all that kind of stuff early in the week, and keep progression in a way where I feel we're going to be pretty dang close by the weekend of getting him on the football field. So I feel like he's coming along real well, especially at the end of last week, working extremely hard to get back out there. I know a lot of the things that both coordinators talked about. I think a lot of the stuff that needs to be worked on was pretty obvious. I think sometimes you look at a game and maybe statistics don't show the things that we know as a staff we need to work on. I think pretty obvious penalties and takeaway turnovers, creating takeaways and limiting the turnovers is a high priority. It always is. Not something that we don't take lightly. It's something that's an emphasis every single day. So we'll continue to do that. And there were some highlights I thought that you can take from the game. Both sides of the ball as a team continue to fight, continue to play. Didn't feel like our guys ever came up short with the amount of energy and effort. I think they had a ton of energy and want to before the game. At halftime, thought they regrouped. Thought both sides were holding themselves accountable for the things that they knew they needed to clean up. We cleaned up some of those things, I think, in the second half. Other issues presented themselves, and in the end, though, they're going to find a way, and they kept fighting. They kept playing together. They took it on themselves and individually, their unit, to go make the plays and trust the other side of the ball that they'd get it done as well. So I'm proud of that piece. Tomorrow, go back to work. Today's their day off from practice, and the guys came in yesterday excited, ready to go with the challenge that lies ahead with Wisconsin. And there is no other option other than just go to work tomorrow. And I know we're going to have a great Tuesday. Questions?
Yeah, hey coach, just given what he went through last week, just how proud are you of the way that Q Robinson played on Saturday and went through that?
Yeah, he's played a couple really good games here in the 2 games we've played. So I'm proud of him. I told him that after the game, and I thought about him a couple times when I saw him out there flying around. And I know there was a couple emotional times I think that he went through in the game, but he's just a special guy all around. It's you see everyone sees him as a player, but being around him and who he is as a person, he loves this program. He is a guy that just everyone looks to as being consistent, I think, and for him to really get back here, have some urgency getting back here, and feel like he wanted to be around this team the latter half of the week. It just shows everything that I said, about his commitment to wanting to be here and help this program every single day be the best we can be. So, a lot of emotions I know for him, and I was proud of the way he played, and he's done a great job here through 2 games.
Coach, can you walk me through the play calling process and what your input is on each play?
Yeah, Coach Sheridan, you talking offense? Yeah, okay. Offense, Coach Sheridan calls the plays throughout a drive. Obviously, I can override something if it is, but I know as a play caller, and having done it for 20 years, that you have to be in a rhythm. You have a plan. In between series, I'll ask, what his thoughts are after they've had a chance to get with the players, now especially with the iPads, make get a couple of thoughts together on what they saw. And, as he's up in the box, putting the next kind of thoughts in the drive together, I'll be on the defensive side, but then I'll flip over And, if there's a takeaway early, sometimes we don't get that chance to talk much. But, usually with TV timeouts and things like that, I get a chance to kind of see where his head's at, give some input there. I think there's always, I don't want to say things you're setting up, but I think there's, again, I use the word rhythm. I think that's the biggest way to describe it. That is really, really critical. And, when you get too much input from too many people, you start getting out of that rhythm. And I think we've done a great job. That's something I've made a point ever since I became a head coach again to make sure I do, because I know when I was with head coaches who did that, how much I appreciate that. And I was fortunate for 10 years as an assistant to pretty much have head coaches that let me kind of go about my business the way I thought it needed to be done. So.
That's over to Chase.
Coach Womack already commented on the targeting call on Justin Jefferson, but apart from that, can you just discuss his play? I think he had 10 stops and his development over the last week or two.
Yeah, again, I think that whole linebacking core has done a lot of great things. Justin certainly flying around. We feel great about the speed he brings. He's into it. He's into it not just individually. He's a guy that's becoming a strong leader in our football team, and the energy he brings every day. I just love having him in this program. He's involved in special teams, and so not having him out there in the first half will be tougher. I mean, more just he's an important part of what we do with different packages, and so and unfortunately that happened late in the game. So we'll have to work through that here in the first half of Wisconsin.
Down the left side with Alex.
You now have 2 games worth of watching film with Jalen Milroe. What do you like from what you've seen, and where do you want to see some improvement from him?
Okay. I think, I think about some touchdown throws that he's made. K-Law in the first game, scrambling on the run. The one to let's see, Prentice this week, stepping up in the pocket. I think those are things that I've seen that where he's really improved. He had a scramble to Dupree, where he hit him along the sideline. I thought there was another one that he did a really good job, and some other guys could have worked with him a little bit better on a scramble drill. He went to the right, hit Germ on a scramble. And so I think eyes down the field and playing that game that he can play, because people are worried about his legs, where he can run and take off, or he can draw the attention to him and throw it. I think that's been great. When we give him looks where he can make decisions, because there's a lot of times 2-3 choices where he can make, whether it's throw a ball to the perimeter, run a running play. He might even keep it. I think he's getting better with every rep that we do it, whether it's in practice or the games. You're seeing that show up, and we want those options because he can do it with his arms and his legs. And the throw and the touchdown to Ryan Williams, that opportunity to just rip it out there. That's something I think when we first started in spring ball, and I think saw it in fall camp where he was getting more and more comfortable. It's not just confidence in yourself; it's confidence in the guys that are around you, and I think that's the key. And so he's developing that. We're talking through every little detail, not just with him, but we're talking it through with the other positions so that trust can happen on the practice field. We're intentional with that, and so he's. I thought again this week he made more strides with check and protections with confidence. We can continue to work on that. He had to run around a little bit at times more than we'd like, but there's a number of factors that come into play. It's not just the offensive line; it's the whole group. And I think the areas you continue to improve. I think we just continue to work together with him to shape and mold. And I think almost every year, I don't care if it's an offense you've been with and you're in year 2 or year 3 or more. I think there's an evolution, where you have different personnel than the year before. And right now we're continuing to find exactly what works for us, what that rhythm is, what he's exactly comfortable with. We aren't going to run something that I think he does a good job of talking and giving us feedback on what he likes and what he maybe is a little bit, hey, let's try to hold off on that as we go through the week. And I love that. I love that, because if there's any question in any player's mind, but especially the quarterback, let's hold off on it. And that's few and far between. But he's done a good job of just giving us feedback on what he saw, and knowing that we can work together to help get him in the spots that he really wants to be in. So I think we're making progress, great progress.
Yeah, kind of follow up to that. Notice a moment post game where you took a second to talk to Jalen and say something to him, and obviously that's a conversation between the two of you. But what are you willing to share about what your message was to him post game?
Oh, I can't even remember exactly what I said. We've talked in the locker room too. Just I don't remember the exact words. I think it was probably just a lot of like, hey, we're always learning. I think that was the general theme of what I was sharing with him. We're always learning. It's good to grind out a win in the fourth quarter. Just something along those lines that, I think it had to do with you keep fighting for this reason. You're going to find a way. You're going to break through at some point if you just keep playing the game and letting the game come back to you by competing.
Back to the Jefferson play. What did you see from that play? And then secondly, just as a head coach, it seems like Wisconsin also had a targeting play like that. What do you feel about the way that I guess targeting gets called and the ramifications of it at this level?
Yeah, I mean, the helmets hit each other, and so we'll wait to get exactly the feedback. There's not much you can do, when you're out there as a coach at that moment. Anything I say isn't going to matter when they're going through their decision. And so, their helmets hit, and now it's just a matter of whether you met any or all of the ways that they determine whether it's targeting or not. So, face mask versus crown, all those type of things. And I know, they got a player that's out too, and I think that was more of a mid-level hit in that game. So.
Down left side to go, Steven. Coach, when you have a position group that may be struggling a bit with penalties, like what do you say to that group to keep them calm and keep them mentally engaged?
Well, I think for us in that game, last weekend, we needed to adjust to how it's being called, and I think that's what you try to just, hey, it's getting called, right? Getting called tighter. And, now we're really able to look at replays and understand, oh yeah, no, if you didn't see it in the game when it happened live, or why it was called, because at the field from where our bench is at, you can go back and you can see the end zone and wide shot and try to determine how tight is it called, and so, trying to stress that, we got to do a good job keeping it right in our hands. We're inside in a lot of cases. We just kept grabbing cloth longer when they were pulling away from us just for that split second, and, holding getting called. And, unfortunately it brought back, I don't know, this is a rough tally, but I wanted to just kind of do my own numbers. I think it was probably at least 180, 190 yards worth of offense, not counting the yards that we lost because of the penalty assessment, and that's a game changer. In the first half alone, I think it was probably at least 180. So we got to adjust and make sure we're playing the game the way it's supposed to be played.
Just a couple questions left. Let's start with Cody in the middle of the room.
2 games in, just curious what your assessment of the secondary is so far.
Yeah, they've done a really good job of changing it up, different coverages and different game plans from week 1 to week 2. We got the 2 picks to start off the season, and I thought, they were 15, I think, were they 15 of 35, I think, in the game. That wasn't their strength necessarily, but we took it away from them, and really no explosives from a passing side of the ball for them, passing for them. So I really like that. I think we, different guys are coming up and making tackles. Malachi did a nice job having to come up. Unfortunately, sometimes, the quarterback did break contain and make some plays with his legs. But guys were there to go get him on the ground and live to see another play. And that's your last line of defense. And I think we've done a good job of only giving up 1 touchdown so far. And so aside from pass coverage, they're keeping the opponent out of the end zone, and in the red zone, especially forcing field goals. So I like where we're at. Got a lot of youth that we're rotating through there. that's not just promising for the growth that they're going to have this year, but promising for the future down the road.
Hey, Coach, Jonathan Hoppy with WBRC. First road trip for you guys here at Alabama. Obviously, you've coached in some big games. How do you get these guys ready for what'll be a great environment up in Wisconsin?
Yeah, there's nothing like playing at home here at Bryant-Denny, but I think there is something to knowing you're going to go into a great environment. These guys really probably haven't been there. Maybe a couple guys from the Midwest that have seen that or been on a visit maybe at one point. But it's going to be a great atmosphere up there, and it's one that I think when you're preparing to go play those games, and we'll of course have that many times here with the SEC schedule too. That hostile environment, taking it on and knowing that it's kind of you versus everyone there. So I think our guys are looking forward to the challenge. They're looking forward to improving on this last week and knowing that we're going to have to in order to face and get a win versus Wisconsin on Saturday.
Hey, Coach. Coach Womack touched on it, but what would you make of Tim Keenan's performance, and just have you seen him continue to kind of be a leader for your defense this year?
Yeah, I caught Tim yesterday. I just think we all are on the same page and feeling that he's done a really nice job here the first two games as well. Just pushing the pocket and disciplined. His assignment. He's just steady as a person, but he's also just steady as a player. Force inside, So his strength is important. He's making sure he always does his job, and you can count on him. So really, really key piece to the success that I think we've had defensively. Awesome. Thank you, Roll Tide.
All right, there you go, Coach DeBoer, Coach Womack. And I think maybe next week we'll just pick up the whole thing. But your thoughts, but I know we got to come back on at 1:00 with Cover Crimson Daily. But your thoughts, I'll tell you this, Clint, Coach DeBoer has a really calm, cool demeanor on that stage, man. He's easy guy to like.
I thought the injury report was interesting. That was nice. And I got it from Nick Saban's perspective. I never blamed him for it, but Saban was more so, if you want to know about a guy, ask about a guy. Don't just ask for, a generalized injury question. I'm not going to give you a list. Kalen DeBoer, it's a different approach, and he kind of, you head it off a little bit. We know Cole Adams is banged up. We know Elijah Pritchett, why he wasn't available for 3.5 quarters. We know that Proctor's been out. So we kind of just came in, gave a list. We didn't know about Pritchett prior to last week, though. So he's not going to give you everybody that's got a little bit banged up, or they're not, they might not be available. It's more of, he covers the ones that you know about. Mm-hmm. And, but it gives us some information where you don't have to ask the question. You can kind of use the opportunities that you have to ask those questions to ask different things. I thought you got a lot of informative answers, so that was great.
Yeah, so did I. And it sounds like, that they, reading between the lines, they didn't think that the Jefferson play was targeting. And I agree with them on that, and look, I'm all about safety on the football field. I mean, we had a little dude die playing football down in Selma, and our hearts go out to him and his family. I mean, obviously, and his teammates, and how tough that is. So, I mean, this is all part of trying to keep people safe. But I mean, if that wasn't a helmet on helmet hit to me, that was just a football play.
And this is what I haven't seen the broadcast version yet. I've been watching the all 22, so I need to go back and watch to see what they said about it, because maybe they brought in an expert and they made a ruling on it. But to me, it felt like, based off of what I'm seeing, it was more of a targeting based off of leading with the crown of the helmet, which is this rule is to put in place to protect offensive players, but every bit as much it was put in place to protect defensive players too. So you're not dipping your head. And, so I don't know as far as like the helmet to helmet, I'm sure that came into it a little bit, but it felt more like, to me, it was that he just slightly had his head down. And see, when I saw it live, it looked like right there at the last second, he got those eyes up just a little bit. And you can see as he's coming through with the hit, it's almost like barely crown, and then he's coming up. And so it was bang, bang. So I just wondered if that had something to do with it, where a lot of people are focusing on what he did to the offensive player and that shouldn't be targeting or whatever, when really it was just them calling targeting to protect Justin Jefferson from himself. Me watching it, it's like I can understand where you'd reach that conclusion based off of the rule. I just think the rule is a little bit extreme and needs to be changed, because that is, I mean, that's football, guys, and that kind of thing. Like I said, he got his eyes up really quick. So even though he led with the crown, it wasn't like he he's going to jam his neck, because as long as he's hitting and is rubbing up, then to me it's pretty clean and pretty safe in my opinion. So just think it needs to be changed.
Yeah, and then how about him saying it was just under 200 yards, right? 180, 190 yards of offense that was taken back because of the penalties. That's a great point. And I know that Jalen Milroe on the postgame show was taking a lot of heat, and you do that. It's the quarterback. It's the quarterback's job. I mean, we do a show. I just did a show. You guys can watch it with Jay Coker. Do it every day. Talk to him about it, or every twice a week. Really, with all the other stuff we're doing, it's like 4 times a week I'm hanging with him. And he played quarterback. You just take it. Like, that's part of the tech, comes with the territory, the criticism, but it's not always the quarterback's fault. And when you lose 180, 190 yards of offense because of penalties, man, it's not just the penalty, but it's like he said, then you're going backwards from that. Then you got to come up with a whole nother play.
And it's not the boneheaded pre-snap penalties, it's during the play. Guys are playing hard. They're trying to get blocks, but it's holding and stuff like that. So it's not really like Jalen can't do anything with that. If guys are holding, that's not his fault. And yeah, I mean, the Alabama had 393 yards, so 50%, and granted they wouldn't have had that yardage total had some of those plays not gotten called back, and then they keep going. But my point is that's almost 50% of the entire yardage that Alabama had for the day just being called back in penalties, including 2 touchdowns. And Alabama had 14 points with about 8 minutes left to go, 8 or 9 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. So that was, the same amount of points they had at that point throughout the game that they had called back. So yeah, that, to me, I don't think people realize how much that impacted how everything looked. Like, you would have some success and then you get it called back, or maybe you didn't have a lot of success. Maybe it's a 3-yard gain or something, but instead of 2nd and 7, now it's 1st and 20. You get 5-6 yards on first down, and now it's 2nd and 14. And just how that puts you behind the sticks, and you're trying to overcome that constantly. That is going to throw everything off. The entire playbook, like Nick Sheridan is handcuffed for a lot of that game. He doesn't have his entire playbook available to him, because you got to be, figuring out ways to get first downs. And last year, a lot of people point out the fact that Jalen Milroe was so effective in 3rd and longs last year, but that was not a sustainable thing, not to that degree. So you can't bank on that. And that's part of it. Them getting that cleaned up will fix a lot of what we saw offensively. It won't fix everything, though. They still got some work to do.
We want you to be a part of covercrimson.com. Mike Johnson mentioned it before. He's going to do a breakdown of the offensive line for members only on the All-American Report tomorrow. We'll have that. Clint's going through every single play, every snap. He's going to see who's in, who's out, what happened. He'll give his perspective on that, and he'll post that on there as well with a bunch of other content. But right now you can sign up for $1. Now, if you do the annual membership right now, boom, you get one of these guys, the Cover Crimson t-shirt, which I love. It's very comfortable. I say my advice, maybe go a size big, but it's soft and comfortable. It looks cool. And I've enjoyed wearing this thing. I've already had it in the wash, I think, like 3 times now, because I'm wearing this shirt out. But take advantage of that. And then Clint, you and I will be back at 1:00 for our Cover Crimson show. So we're going to break down the game. We'll talk a little bit about what DeBoer and the assistant coaches will take your comments as well. But we just wanted to do this, see if you guys liked it, if this was something that worked here on the channel. It feels like it did. So we'll do it again next week.
Yeah, we'll get everything covered next week. We'll probably include Sheridan as well. It's a lot of us sitting around and watching and reacting, but I like that. I like being able to come together and just you bringing some thoughts to the table, comments. It certainly helps us keep everything clear in our own minds and get a much better understanding of what was said by the coaches.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to watch it anyway, so why not just watch it together as a channel family? It's just what we're doing. Guys, show's brought to you by our channel's brought to you by, really. MyBookie.ag. Use the promo code next round to double your initial deposit. That's right. MyBookie will double your initial deposit when you use the promo code next round. Kick off the football season with MyBookie.ag and double your initial deposit using the promo code next round. All right. Talk to you guys at 1 o'clock. Thanks for hanging out. And again, roll tide. Good job, coaches.